What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. It has been a very long time since the last installment of 5 Things We Want in Elder Scrolls 6, the series where in absolutely no order whatsoever, I talk about 5 things we'd love to see in the next Elder Scrolls title. Our last episode was uploaded back in 2019, and each one was sustained by you, the viewers, and your Elder Scrolls threats regarding what would happen if I didn't give you another installment. Well, the year is 2021, and while 2020 was a turbulent year, it seems like those threats were empty words. I want you to up your game in the comments this time. No more Nazim will follow you around forever comments, or Elder Scrolls 6 will have microtransactions ones. Get super creative, call upon a Daedric prince, and let loose the most horrific but hilarious Elder Scrolls threats you've got. Last time I had at least 2 of you trying to send the Dark Brotherhood after me, and even had a commenter saying that if I don't do a part 11, the Toddhead will start dreaming of creative ways to make more money. Can't be worse than Tom Lee's Elder Scrolls 6 Skyrim 2, which has nothing to do with Skyrim at all, though I guess if it's an amazing game, the title doesn't matter too much anyway, right? I can also tell Flawless Cowboy that Lydia will not be blocking my doorway for eternity, and no, Colin Dunlop, the bunny slaughtered statistic will not be removed from Elder Scrolls 6, for today I come arms outstretched to save the day with part 11. But what Colin may not realize is that I have actually saved the Elder Scrolls bunnies today, for the only reason I don't kill them already is because that statistic exists. I simply can't face the guilt, but remove it entirely and, well, who knows what might happen. The first thing on this list is the concept of having more opportunities to permanently change map environments. Recently I was reflecting upon some of the most memorable moments in role-playing games that I've had, and the pure satisfaction I felt blowing up Megaton on my first evil playthrough of Fallout 3 couldn't help but cross my mind. Blowing up Megaton wasn't the best move if you wanted to enjoy what little civilization there was that had started to rebuild, but the decision definitely had impact. It was a very serious path to take, and you were rewarded handsomely for doing so. In the Outer Worlds, agreeing to slaughter the town of Edgewater while siding with the board was pretty intense. More options like this in an Elder Scrolls world would be incredibly cool, and while the dark and immoral choices can easily take the spotlight, it doesn't have to be restricted to that at all. The premise is simply to see your actions heavily change the pre-existing places around you. Imagine taking part in a massive assault on a kingdom somewhere in High Rock, and you see siege machines being used to smash apart the walls or blast through gates. Perhaps half the city is in flames, all because you chose to manipulate one king and turn him against another. Or perhaps you had righteous motives in doing this and viewed one kingdom as being covertly under the thumb of the Thalmor, needing new leadership. Having the siege damage remain after the conflict is resolved would be really cool. Seeing one of the cleanest, most regal looking cities look like a war zone makes for an interesting contrast, and perhaps later on there could be an option to help with rebuilding. On a more positive note, I remember in Oblivion there was a town called Cropsford, which is basically just a few foundations and building material when you find it. It's stuck in the middle of 2 warring goblin tribes, but once you help put a stop to their fighting, Cropsford can flourish. Over time, construction progress is steadily made until actual houses are built and the town is properly established. Situations like this, resulting due to your actions, are super satisfying. I can imagine a situation in Elder Scrolls 6 where you're seeking an audience with Molag Bal at a hidden shrine in Hammerfell, but first you must prove yourself worthy to the cult of worshippers there. The cult leader says you must join them tomorrow before dawn, where you'll all descend upon a nearby settlement and burn it to the ground. The inhabitants there are growing prosperous due to a resident alchemist who found a way to make potions which improve crop yield dramatically throughout all seasons. Not only must you burn down the town and slaughter the residents, but you need to slay the alchemist before he flees and burn his book of research and recipes. To finish, you must throw Daedric fire salts through the fields so nothing will grow there again. The town would stay in a dilapidated state permanently, and going back there later could feel like returning to Helgen, with bandits having since made a home amongst the ruins. All in all, being able to make choices which change the game environment makes the game a lot more fun by letting you exert more influence on the world around you. Having more consequence for potential actions like this also promotes replayability massively, because you'll want to do things differently the next time around and see the other side of the coin and roleplay multiple characters. The second thing on this list is a desire for more quests that take you somewhere otherwise inaccessible. Now don't get me wrong, if I had to choose between this and the previous idea of having more dynamic environments in the areas of the map that already exist, I'd pick that over this. This is more like the icing on the cake, assuming the rest of the game map is a highly accessible, super fleshed out place. Thinking back to some of my favorite side quests in Skyrim, I really enjoyed Rise in the East. Stumbling around the docks of Windhelm, I walked into a rundown East Empire Company office, yet to realize what I was getting myself into. I discovered that the company is having problems with pirate attacks, and after investigating the Shadow Shield office and learning that they've become acquainted with the pirates, I tracked down the crew's captain in Dawnstar. Convincing him I'm interested in ship plundering, I learnt of their secret weapon, a battle mage named Halden, who is hiding out at a place called Japheth's Folly. Returning to the office, I meet an Imperial woman who wants me to help put a stop to the Bloodhawker pirates once and for all. Next minute, I'm on their ship, traveling to an isolated island on the very northern border of Skyrim. Halden the mage seems to have created a fog to force the ship to anchor, but I infiltrate the fort and take him out, removing the fog. The rest of the soldiers launch a massive assault. It's a fun mission and added a lot of enjoyment to my playthrough. I simply didn't expect to be venturing outside of the known map area. There's an element of surprise value I appreciate, where the stakes become higher than I anticipated. You think you've seen everything on the map until suddenly you're taken somewhere you've never been. A similar idea is found in Oblivion, when you decide to sleep at the Bloated Float Inn within the Imperial City waterfront district. In Oblivion, sleeping was a necessary final step to level up once you had progressed enough, so you'd often find yourself in various inns around the place, paying the small price to get a room for the night. Well, while sleeping in this inn, which is quite literally a ship, you wake up to find it has been hijacked by a group called the Blackwater Brigands and taken out to sea. The inn's owner foolishly invented a rumor about a legendary golden statuette called the Golden Galleon. Made completely of gold, it was said to be hidden somewhere in the ship by the previous owner. It, of course, does not exist, and while it did drum up some new business, it also led to this situation where he's trapped in the ocean with a gang of armed thieves. As you fight through the ship and kill each member of the gang, you can acquire information that you can use to make their leader stand down. While it didn't really take you somewhere to explore, the fact that it unexpectedly took you to a new setting, the middle of the ocean, was really cool. I would love to see this happen more in the Elder Scrolls 6, so long as exploration isn't hindered by restricting access to places that could easily be places to travel to on the map. Assuming it's set in Hammerfell, I can imagine a quest that has you escort a fleeing criminal across the Brina River and into Cyrodiil's Gold Coast area. This could be an entire Far West Cyrodiil DLC if Bethesda really wanted to open up an area of Cyrodiil, though it may be difficult to not disappoint fans by inevitably restricting exploration into the rest of the province. Perhaps one side quest has you travel in a boat to a small island off the coast of Stros Mackay, looking to dig up an heirloom for an eccentric Redguard man you found wandering frantically up and down a small beach area near Rehad. Overall, moments like this just increase the fun of uncovering every quest and keep exploration super exciting, as you're never quite sure when you've seen it all. The third thing I'd love to talk about today is a radiant enemy system similar to that implemented by Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. Sure, game developers might be discouraged from innovating in this direction due to the Warner Brothers patent, but I still hope Bethesda could do something similar but different enough to avoid any trouble. Those familiar with these Middle-earth games would know that the Nemesis system procedurally generated enemies for you to meet, as well as evolving mini-stories between these foes, each other, and the player. Enemies have unique names and titles that can change depending on your interactions with them, and their rank within their orc army hierarchy evolved too. The exact mechanics from these games with hierarchy menus and so on might not be the perfect fit for a main Elder Scrolls title, but a modified version of it that's more behind the scenes could be amazing. Todd Howard loves to emphasize a craft your own path and own story concept, and Elder Scrolls is known for its fun exploration and replayability, so a system like this would provide for memorable experiences unique to each player and each playthrough. Of course, I love and still want a focus on all the handcrafted specific enemies in specific spots with their own set-in-stone stories. It adds a lot of great lore to the Elder Scrolls world, and I don't want everything to just feel randomized. However, as we see in any Elder Scrolls game, there's always many locations filled with generic bandits, vampires, necromancers, and so on. For these places specifically, I think that some sort of Nemesis-type radiant enemy system could really revamp generic enemy zones into something much more memorable. Generic vampires could be split into multiple clans, which is perfect if the game is set around High Rock, Hammerfell, or both, as there's already many different bloodlines established in the lore. Bandits could be grouped into different gangs, each with their own flavor and personalities, much like we see with the gangs of Fallout New Vegas. Same with different rogue mage or necromancer groups, and to use an example from Skyrim, even side faction groups like the Forsworn would fit. All of these enemy types are generally supposed to be power hungry, but in games like Skyrim they act like hermits, chilling in their own fort or cave and never striving for more. Instead of simply respawning after you clear them from their dungeon zone, imagine you come back and a different gang has taken over, and when you get there, the bandit chief says something like, "I don't know whether to thank you or kill you," because you've helped him take his rival's fort. The bandit chief or specific group leader could have a random name, and remember you if you flee and come back, or if you get their health low enough, they could even flee. If you kill them, fine, but if they escape, they could later show up as a random encounter seeking revenge. Or perhaps they send Dark Brotherhood assassins after you, or turn up in a different fort as a new leader of this same faction group. It's a lot to ask, but if this is a wish list of what I'd desire in an ideal Elder Scrolls 6, I think it would be pretty sensational. Specific details, changing dialogue, and even appearances would be even cooler. Imagine if the game registered you using fire damage to diminish the majority of a target's health bar, be it from a spell or weapon enchantment, and next time you meet them, their name has changed from Varan the Fierce to Varan the Charred. Dynamic dialogue would be used to show this enemy remembers you as they rip out a newly enchanted flaming war axe and say, "Seeing as you like fire so much, I thought you might like this." Returning enemy leaders may adopt new playstyles to surprise you within reason and have personality shifts, perhaps becoming more paranoid or hardened. Of course, unlike the Middle-earth games, you won't be dying and coming back to life, nor will the option for enemies to humiliate you or you flee and run away be present or as common, but I'm sure you can see how much some kind of modified nemesis system could add flavor to the world. Hierarchical elements running in the background would also be neat. If you killed a leader but left some bandits alive, a survivor could become the new leader when you return, decked out with a unique name and better gear. These characters could all look quite distinguished and memorable if Elder Scrolls 6 has as much character customization as we'd want. Elements from the Nemesis system could also enhance bounty hunting missions by providing unique targets to kill or capture, some of which may cut a deal with you in desperation in order to escape, only to show up later to help you wipe out a rival fort, or opportunistically seek revenge for being bested. Or maybe a target flees as you try to cut him down, and you meet him later in some tavern and he attacks you on sight. Fans of the Elder Scrolls games tend to love the random encounters because they keep you guessing and often surprise you. A Radiant enemy system like this would provide for more of those immersive playthrough moments that people love to share with their friends of, "In my playthrough I was doing so and so and then this thing happened." Just to be super clear, I don't want the whole game to be some big randomly generated enemy thing, but simply desire a new Radiant system to replace the kind of enemy group leaders who are likely to end up as generic unnamed foes. Overall, a system like this would really help to make the map feel more dynamic, and the enemies that would usually feel more stock standard would become more unique. It also incentivizes returning to a set location multiple times to see if a different group or faction has claimed it. Having the player experience be more personalized and unique just adds so much, and while a system like this wouldn't be as foundational to the game as it was in the Middle-earth games, it's not supposed to be, nor does it really have to be, to really enhance an Elder Scrolls game experience. The fourth thing on this list is something hardly ever talked about in regards to Elder Scrolls games, and this is fleshing out the nobility. We want to see better integration of leadership roles and their visibility in the world. If you've watched our Ideal Skyrim video, which I'll link below, then you'll be familiar with how Skyrim could have benefited from exploring Thanes, housecarls, and so on a lot more. Multiple Thanes should have existed throughout the territory of each hold, with claim over different plots of land, governing key villages and settlements. It just doesn't feel realistic to have Jarl Bolgraf responsible for everything going on in a hold as large as Whiterun, when really far off places like Rorikstead would have their own problems requiring good leadership and quick military action, but not always being implemented from the mouth of a Jarl. This would free up time for the Jarl to focus on the most pressing concerns. The Elder Scrolls 6, which at this point we can assume is in Hammerfell, High Rock, or both, would be a perfect place to bring nobility and more political intrigue into focus. In Hammerfell you have the Forebears and the crowns, which would have various levels of hierarchy within each faction, and in Hyrule, of course, you have many different kingdoms who would all have their own alliances and rivalries with one another. Using Hyrule as an example, I would love to see kingdoms feature other important leaders besides kings. Dukes, barons, castellans, and burgraves could all have various roles in the world, and you'd be able to meet these characters and even play a part in the various interactions between them. A king could still have some sort of council comprised of nobles who weigh in on military matters, but other individuals granted leadership positions would be spread out all over the rest of the kingdom's territory. They'd have their own central structures they rule from a large house in a small village to a mighty fort built in a significant hub area. It all depends on their standing, their responsibilities, and how much power they've acquired. They'd have their own personalities, apparent not only through dialogue, but also seen in the aesthetic preference of what they wear and how they decorate where they govern from a collection of taxidermied beasts and trophy heads they hunted, to rich displays of lavish art. They'd have their own guards to command and even a jail cell or two to hold local criminals before having them carted off to a main city jail. Each leader could have one or more advisors to call upon in times of need, and they'd be responsible for matters of local trade, defense against any threats, be it rival kingdoms, or even orc pillages if Orsinium is nearby, and they could also mediate disputes between locals, though this would be delegated to a mediator in the case of more prestigious nobles. In these kinds of feudal societies, clashes between various members of nobility would not be uncommon. So even within a single kingdom, the player could have the option to shape certain events in a way that sees some leaders and factions they support grow in power while others become diminished. If a reputation system like we saw in Fallout New Vegas featured in the Elder Scrolls 6, which is something we'd love to see, this could help you keep track of which kingdom regions like you and which do not. Keep in mind that various vassals throughout a kingdom do not have to act like some sort of big subservient hive mind for their king or queen, and given enough time, many would grow to acquire their own degree of sovereignty. They may pledge allegiance to their king, but with the resources and backing to defy his orders, it is possible that a king ends up somewhat beholden to a collective of lesser leaders. I would love for it to be possible to influence a king by gaining sway over his underlings, prompting him to fulfill your demands in order to keep his vassals satisfied. In addition to the diversity of leaders found throughout the kingdoms, different factions these leaders have strong alliances with would also be present. Various knightly orders of hierarch or strong religious or political groups with plenty of resources and influence would be cool examples. I'd hope that the player would be able to join such factions with many ranks to climb up, and of course a faction list in the menu showing where you stand at any given time. Eventually you could even have a king of Daggerfall, for example, grant you the ability to become a baron or other noble figure and actually have land to control. Whether or not you could eventually become king, I don't really mind, but it could be pretty cool if Bethesda could make it feel both lore-friendly and deserved. But going back to the main point of why we want the nobility to be more present in the world, here's a simple example using Skyrim to prove a point. Imagine adding just one or two buildings to some of the settlements on the map. The main structure would house some sort of leader to meet and get quests from, and a few NPCs related to the governance of the local region. Look at the area around Old Hroldan. You could clear some trees and easily add some more houses that different people would live in. Clear enough space and you could even have a small keep structure that a Thane rules from. He could give you quests to help him with and speak of his relation to the Jarl. Perhaps he's Igmund's third cousin. This Thane could speak of other Thanes of the Reach, who would also help rule over various territories and settlements. This Thane would act to keep the area safe from Force 1 attacks or wandering giants, and oversee the operations of a prosperous mine that could be added in, built into the side of the Rocky Mountains. I think we can all agree this would have really helped bring each hold to life that much more. Overall, creating this web of interconnected noble leaders in the world for the player to interact with and take part in provides for many fun quest opportunities that flesh out the lore, and it promotes replayability while making sure the kingdom areas are not just big spaces, but also have depth. And finally, we come to our last desire of the video, a better companion management system. Back in 2018, we were discussing our desire of having better companions in general, taking the laundry list of pack mule travel buddies on offer in Skyrim and distilling them down into a smaller group of about 8, or could be more, really memorable, highly interactive characters. Think of how Fallout 4 companions tend to prioritize quality over quantity when compared with Skyrim. However, this desire for companions goes beyond beyond that. Not only should companions make your playthrough a deeper experience on a more personal level, but you should be able to better control them to complement your playstyle and character build setup. I'm talking about things like assigning roles or playstyles and an inventory management screen. Going up to one of your companions, you should have full control over what pieces of armor they have equipped in each slot and what weapons they will use. You can give them enchanted gear you made specifically for them, or even a Daedric artifact. All of this customization is not only enjoyable, but also helps to promote support type builds who want to give their companions all of the best gear and then facilitate their efforts with magical buffs. You should also be able to mark certain items as priority, meaning they will be used in battles early on. A good example of this is a poison you've crafted specifically for your companion to apply to their sword, or a potion used to boost their one-handed damage. Ever-improving AI technology should also help companions act more intelligently by the time Elder Scrolls 6 comes out. For example, not wasting the deadly poison you gave them on a mud crab just because you marked it as a priority. Spellcasting companions could be managed further with a kind of spellbook screen where you can select what spells they would have equipped for primary use. It might also be cool if their skill level was high enough for you to be able to give them spell tomes you find to then learn the spell from. Imagine finding a water-breathing spell tome and then asking your mage companion to cast it on your barbarian character who desires to loot some treasure on the seafloor. The way all of this could be accessed is through a companion wheel, similar to what we saw in Fallout New Vegas. This should allow us to somewhat change our companion's playstyle. Even in New Vegas, a 2010 game, players could tell their companion to switch between melee and ranged, to stay close or keep a distance while following you, to be aggressive, aka attacking on sight, or to be passive, which is supposed to mean only attack enemies engaged in combat with the player. Of course, you could ask them to wait or follow you and also give them a stim pack, which in Elder Scrolls 6 could be the option to give any stat restoring potion for immediate use. We'd love the ability to get even more specific, selecting things such as ranged only, melee only, or both, so that some warrior companions don't just magically whip out a bow and start shooting dragons like they did in Skyrim. It might be helpful, but it felt out of place, especially if they didn't have that bow previously. Different playstyle approaches would look different for different companions. You could tell a mage to fight aggressively, leading to lots of destruction use with fireballs flying everywhere, or to act defensively, resulting in them staying close to you with a ward in one hand, which we'd hope are improved in Elder Scrolls 6, and a destruction spell in the other, perhaps Frost to slow incoming melee attackers. Or you could choose support, leading to your companion to follow you casting buffs and healing spells. With the same commands, an expert warrior companion could shield charge enemies and run straight in with their sword if aggressive, or stay near you with a shield and sword, blocking frequently and only advancing with you. A final idea that I'd love to hear your thoughts on is the possibility of managing companion perks. I don't really mind if Bethesda implements this or not, but systems like this can help to make you feel more invested in companions during your playthrough. Think of how in the Outer Worlds companions gained perk points as they leveled and you could allocate them however you saw fit. Modifying this concept to fit in an Elder Scrolls game could work quite well, allowing the player to choose their companions' perks the same way they pick their own. Of course, there could be an automatic level setting for players who don't care much about this feature at all. There could also be automatic presets to pick as a midway point, such as offensive or defensive, for players who don't want to choose every perk but have a rough idea of what they want. Companion levels would likely have to scale with you to a degree, but progression could still fit in to some extent. As an example, they could be 5 levels lower than you at the worst or 5 levels above you at the best. Otherwise, it would be a hassle to have to grind up a new companion's level all the way up to yours when you first pair up. Of course, the way in which they gain experience would have to be altered too, in terms of both the speed of the progress as well as ignoring a level by doing system for them. Level by doing just wouldn't be compatible with every companion, as a companion who is meant to understand a crafting skill like alchemy should see this skill raise in level despite probably spending most of their time helping you with combat. As you can see, there's many different balancing acts for Bethesda to take into account with an idea like this, but the general premise of companion perks is interesting. It could help make players more invested in companions you can actually use and level as a functional side character. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this Elder Scrolls 6 discussion. Remember to tell me in the comments below what will happen if I don't make a part 12, and as always, thanks for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it and want more, and feel free to share any ideas you have in the comments too. My name is Michael, social media links can be found in the description below, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.